We're back with a Fox News alert. Tension between the U.S. and Russia at an all-time high following President Obama's decision to impose sanctions on that country. So what happened to the Russian reset? And what could this mean for the president-elect, Mr. Trump, weighing in with a statement saying, quote, "It's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Nevertheless, in the interest of our country and its great people, I will meet with leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the facts of this situation." Here to weigh in, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Good morning, Ambassador Bolton. And I wonder, first of all, when you have some senior Democrats in Capitol Hill, that building behind you, saying these are pretty paltry in terms of sanctions and don't have a lot of teeth, what real impact will they have?
Well, I don't think they'll have much impact at all, and I think President Obama seriously compromised the signal that he was trying to send by mushing together both the cyber attacks and the harassment of American diplomats in Moscow. It's the latter that really explains the PNGing of 35 Russian diplomats in this country and closing their 2 compounds, which the Russians are now preparing to reciprocate. The real issue is getting our arms around what we know about what the Russians actually did. And this administration has so politicized intelligence over the past several years, its comments during the election period, its comments now, that I think both the Senate and House committees that are looking into this and the new Trump administration are going to have to consider the actual facts very carefully and decide what they're going to do.
Is the second question, you mentioned the big question, the second question, what of the legacy of one Barack Obama in terms of Russia? First of all, they had that Russian reset, he and Secretary Clinton. That clearly did not go well. Secondly, in the 2012 campaign, it was Barack Obama who mocked Mitt Romney for saying Russia was our biggest geopolitical foe, and now here he is on the way out the door, seeming to try desperately to slap Vladimir Putin.
Well, look, the Russians have walked all over the Obama administration for 8 years. It's really been a pathetic performance. So what this last burst of activity has to do is hard to say. I do think it's intended to try and box the Trump administration in. I think it will fail. This is simply an executive order. If President Trump decides to reverse it, it's easy enough to do. But I just want to say, we really need to get past the politics of this, because if even a piece of what is alleged about this Russian activity is true, it is utterly unacceptable. It is an attack on our constitutional system. It is not enough to say, and people should be very careful about this, to say, well, it didn't actually have an impact on the election. You know, the fact that Russian efforts were incompetent or insufficient shouldn't make us feel better. If Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor and all of its bombs and torpedoes had missed, no Americans killed, no ships sunk, would we have said no harm, no foul? No, it's the effort that they made, if this is accurate, that should trouble us, not the fact that it failed.
Great point. And we have 1 minute, so that leads to the final question, which is, what then should the incoming president, Donald Trump, actually do about this? He's been accused, to be fair here, of being too cozy with Vladimir Putin. So moving ahead, what must he do to respond to what you just said?
Right. Well, I would extend the question to Chinese hacking, North Korean hacking, Iranian hacking, lots of hacking that the Obama administration has failed to respond to across the board. Look, we want to try and minimize this, and to do that, you've got to build up both our cyber offensive and defensive capabilities and create structures of deterrence so it doesn't happen again. And how do you do that? In this case, you make the Russians feel pain. The White House press spokesman you had on at the top of the show said President Obama is sending a signal. That is utterly useless. So if you make them feel pain and others feel pain, then the possibility of deterring future conduct like this increases. That's what we need to do.
Great. A lot of noise on this issue. Ambassador Bolton cutting through that noise as he usually does. We appreciate you being on. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Ed.